We on him, right? All right, we are coming out of executive session. Is there any business regarding the executive session to be conducted at this time, Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we will be voting on a general discussion item later in the board meeting.
Thank you. Let's move on to committee reports, Finance Committee. Mr. Coffin?
Well, shortly I'll ask Patty if she'll present some details and answer questions about the July financial statement. Couple of observations. I would note for you that the comparisons of actual to budget, that the budget that they're looking at is one that Steve and the staff have revised since we were alerted to and became aware of this pandemic. And that the revenue projections are extremely pessimistic. The caustic, or the expense projections were also trying to be very conservative, but this is not at all, the budget that you see on these reports is not at all a normal budget year, not at all what you would see for a normal year of operations. The budget assumes a drop in both bridge and airport traffic, and we have been able to continue operating the bridge and the airport and the port and the industrial park, but it's partly because of support from the payroll protection program and partly because of the CARES Act. But the PPP support has expired, is that accurate to say?
Yeah.
It's been used up, and the CARES funds are available only to support operations at the airport. So, I want to draw or pursue going along a fine line in between being unrealistically rosy and calling for panic. Because we are gradually consuming what working capital the OBPA has. And should things consider without any changes in the future, we will use up our working capital. And then the choices are not at all ones that we actually want to have to act on. You have to close something down, stop doing something. The staff, Steve and Sam, are in close contact with the governor's office and with the state Department of Budget, Department of Transportation, the relevant offices. And they have expressed, with support for the port and various other expressions, they have expressed a lot of support for the OBPA. I have great confidence in the state government addressing these problems with us. But they are waiting for federal action. And I hope that our federal representatives, in whom I also have great confidence, are able to find a solution to this problem, because ultimately the state has its own problems, its own limits on what it can do. And so our prospect is, the immediate option is to have the federal government take action that will provide some more support through whatever indirect routes it finally takes when it reaches us. In the meantime, I think that I assume that Steve, you and the staff and Sam are thinking about what we do if Congress is locked up and can't act till the first of the year. And we'll discuss that in the future, eh? You know, let's not buy trouble till we get someone. At this point, I would ask Patty whether or not you could lead us through a little look at the financial material that you distributed.
Sure. When we look at we have two funds, the bridge fund and the port fund. When we look at the bridge fund, or I'll back up just a moment, we're 4 months into our fiscal year, and that's 33% of your budget. So as you look at your income and your expenses, you hope that what you're spending or what you're taking in is at least equivalent to your 33% or whatever percent you would have. And when we look at the bridge fund, our rental income is 32% of the budget. It's right on the money. So I've been following a lot of things like that to see if we are indeed at least in line with our budget. Our bridge tolls are over budget. That is because Steve and I were very pessimistic about what would happen. We have a light that shines in the fact that truck traffic has still been solid, and it's 3 cars to a truck.
Yeah.
So we are at least holding our own with the truck traffic. Our expenses are, we're trying our hardest on the bridge side to defer any maintenance that we can. Any things that we would like to have but don't really need, we're pushing those off. The huge over budget on payroll taxes and employee benefits, I don't know how this happened. It happened a couple of years ago that they put all the taxes and benefits on the bridge side and never gave anything to the port. So when we get to the port budget to actual, you'll see that they're $55,000 below budget. The bridge is $63,000 over budget. So it will equal out, it's just not been put in the right spots. The PPP maxed out at $430,000 that we received. If you go down to the bottom, the change in net assets after depreciation without the PPP, you can see that the PPP has truly helped us keep going. Any questions on the bridge fund? The port fund is made up of the airport, the industrial park, the marine terminal, and the railroad. So we do show 2 reports, one to show you exactly what's happening this month in each area, but then it's combined in the port budget to actual. So on the port fund budget to actual, you only see the combination of all of the areas. And you can see, if you look at the budget to actual, we are unfortunately below budget in bringing in income, which is probably the biggest thing. Even though we are below budget in our expenses, our income is down. Again, the thing that saves us is we have the CARES Act, that we can receive reimbursement for most of our airport expenses. So at this point, year to date, we have taken and asked for reimbursement for $631,000 from the CARES Act. We right now have $195,000 that we're waiting to come in. And that comes in relatively quickly, within a week to 10 days of when we submit, and it's approved, we get our funds returned to us. We're doing some interesting things to keep some of our payments going. We have a payment we have to put in for one of our bonds from the airport. And as soon as we receive the money back from the CARES Act, we put it aside and it pays next month's bond reserve payment. And then when we get that money back, we have it to pay. So we're trying to do a few of those things with the CARES Act, which will help us go forward longer with the airport expenses. Any questions on the budget to actual? The balance sheet, or the statement of financial position, shows our assets and our liabilities. Our accounts receivable is at $678,000 at the end of July, which sounds awful, but if you understand that $163,000 is ship money that hasn't come in, and $391,000 is some of the wind turbine money, that brings us to $554,000 of the $678,000. So we know that that's simply a timing issue on the income side. And if we do sneak down to the accounts payable on the current liability side, of that 1.3 million, which we try and keep to under $1 million, 195,000, almost 200,000 of that is the other side of the port expenses. So as soon as we receive the money on the top side, then we can pay off. And that will keep us close to our $1 million mark. Another 143,000 belongs to the New York State Retirement System. And those two items together do bring us below the $1 million mark where we want to be at this point in time. Any questions?
Anyone? Hey, good?
I'm good.
You're at finance, Nicole? Tony?
Okay.
Jennifer?
No.
Okay. Anything else, Betty?
Just what we have to talk about in executive session.
Okay. Chris, you have anything else for?
No, really, I'm all set.
Good.
Great confidence in what's going on here at the, with the staff, and I'm comfortable with these reports.
Good. Good. Thank you. So on reports, we've already hit the income and expense report, the bridge traffic report. Steve?
Yeah, just to, you'll take a look at the bridge traffic report. You see on auto crossings, you're at 90.86. That number has gone really from 91 to 92 since April. It hasn't, that's just been a solid, unfortunate number that we've had. On the truck traffic, which is all of the crossings, that's gone anywhere from 27% down to back up to, I think 13 or 14 is the best we've done maybe 2 months ago, but it stays in that range. I anticipate, I think as we go into fall, that'll get a little bit larger. Maybe not, maybe as the economy comes around, it might be steady. But you can see over there, compare the revenue there compared to, you know, you're looking at $220,000 difference in revenue, and just that is such a huge hit to our budget. But that's generally been the picture since April, pretty much. You know, for all the new members, that's kind of what we see there. And last year with our toll increase, you would have seen, and during this time, you would have seen it probably, I don't know, we're running 10 to 12% better on revenue and predictions on that, but that just all stopped in March, which is unfortunate. Then, talking about the future, I'm kind of thinking the first of the year or January, but I've seen some reports as far into May and June of next year for the border, you know, with people talking. I see that, I find that hard to believe, but people are talking like that. I know you're not getting any movement from any of the border people. They seem to think it's either going to be a vaccine that's going to change it, you know, the Canadian look at things. So that's just what I'm finding. But you'll see it in all kinds of articles right now, and it's too far away to predict. So, but I really don't have a lot of hope for till the end of the year with anything. So it could surprise us, but I don't think so.
Steve, a question. This is the time of year when, under normal circumstances, we'd be working on our budget for the new year. And I know that it's a very unknown commodity to make plans for 2021. Our budget has to be prepared and adopted by the end of the calendar year, even though it covers the same fiscal year as the state, which is
April 1.
April 1 through March 31. So we need to approve a budget by the end of December. And that really has to be into the state by something like December 10.
Middle of December.
So, you know, under the best circumstances, we'd approve it in our November meeting. We'll probably have a special meeting on December 9th. But will you two make a plan on how we'll develop a budget?
I will say one thing, I think everybody has an overall view of where, it's not like in a normal budget, everyone has different views of how they like to see the bridge and port go. And you may say, well, the port looks this or this and that, and you might have, you know, things that you'd like to see happen. I think what happens is with the pandemic, it puts the brakes on everybody. We all know the expectations in some ways, and I'm not proud to say this, but I think it'll be easier because we're just gonna approach this budget almost like we did when when you asked us, and when Patty got here, when we reviewed, and that, I'm just saying my own feeling is it's gonna be in the same mold.
Sure.
And with input from everybody of how they see things, we may tweak things a little bit, but it's gonna be so hard to be optimistic
Yes.
about business, rentals, and all of that with any kind of confidence. So, you know, it'll be a really stripped down, you know, there won't be a lot of capital work other than the big things that we know. So, you know, is that making sense to you?
It does to me. I wonder, Sam, whether you have any input on assumptions about the bridge being able to operate normally. Should we just assume that it's closed all of the next fiscal year?
You know, that's quite broad. But referring back to what you mentioned earlier about the federal government, maybe as we get into late September, early October, we'll know more
Yeah.
if some of that is gonna filter down. If not, if some of that reimbursement doesn't come to states, counties, authorities, and the bridge stays closed for a few months in 21, I don't know.
Yeah.
That we, like you said earlier, we may have to make some very tough decisions that I don't think any of us sitting here would like to make ever. But we might have to do that.
And we may be told to do that.
Yeah,
Sure.
Because
that's right.
we could just be one in a line of, whether it's municipalities,
Mhm.
counties, all kinds of governments that are, you know, they're doing this, they're gonna be facing the same thing we're facing.
That's right.
And all going to Albany, and basically we look just, I mean, we're not special, you know, in that sense that there's gonna be other, and there could be I don't know, there could be a crisis like that come the first of the year where the state's just going, we have no money.
Mhm.
Right.
And you know, and that sounds, but that's a possibility.
Mhm.
So, Steve and I have talked about this, and I think everybody here knows. We tell Albany everything.
Mhm.
I think it's best to be upfront, let them know financially where we are, what's happening. Sometimes I don't think Albany knows all the little details of what's happening across our border, but it affects us a lot more than agencies throughout New York State. So, as much as we don't like to give bad news, we have to, so they know. We don't want to catch them off guard, we don't want them to be surprised by anything. So I think that's the best approach, and as things happen, we're just gonna have to adjust to it.
Mhm.
But I think you're right, we need to, as close as we get to when we have to have that budget passed, look at whatever information is available to all of us, and look at it and seriously, in your own mind, think about where you think we need to go in 2021. So everyone's input is important, because every one of you see things maybe a little bit differently and have different information than the rest of us, and we need all that, so we make a better decision as we go into that fiscal year.
And Chris, I think 2 years ago you requested kind of a finance budget committee meeting, maybe for a couple meetings as a precursor to the final budget or whatever, and it never happened. Like, if I recall, the previous CFO had health issues, and that month of October, it just all was put out there, and I can remember I didn't have a whole lot of input into that, it was just put together.
Sure.
And then last year with Joe, having a new CFO, I don't think, and we didn't have the board members.
Right.
So I think with all the board members there, could you, I would like to see that input with Patty and
Yeah.
3 board members or 4, 3 anyway.
Well, actually, I think, and you talked about it, what is best is to have a working session
Workshop,
of the whole board,
yeah.
under the, and it's legal, to consider it as a working session regarding the budget. You chair it as chair of the finance committee, and we're all here, and I think having input by everybody certainly will make it better.
Well, I think
If you-
that, as always, the better we understand what's going on, I think that the dynamics of staff and board always are that the staff really knows better in terms of factual background. But the board very much, I think everybody takes their responsibilities seriously and would like to do a good job and can bring something to it. So if we can understand, if you could walk us through what you look at and where you think the decision points are, it sure would be a help to you.
Yeah, and it's helped that actually Patty, when we did that in June, that helped you get kind of immersed. It's not the exact same process, but you're more
Yeah.
familiar with that, yeah.
Well, it certainly is the case for me, and I don't know if everybody else functions with numbers the way I do, but I think that a budget process is the point where you start to get a grasp on what's going on. And it's not necessarily always a decision of how much money goes into it, but, which projects are gonna get the priority, which ones are gonna be protected, and which ones are areas where we can make a decision. And it's a very educational process for me every year. So let's see whether we can do that. And probably, Sam, it'll be appropriate, given the amount of business that there is in our regular meetings, to have a separate budget meeting at some point. And will you make a recommendation on whether it's, let's say, October, or at what point you're game to do
I
that?
would say maybe after the finance committee meeting in October, we will have enough numbers,
Yeah,
I think, to make some serious decisions in November sometime.
yeah. So the finance committee is on the schedule for the final Monday of every month. And that does mean early November for a get-together where the whole board could go over this and see if we can understand it.
Good, good. Dave, you serve on the finance committee, what do you think?
I think that sounds like a good, it's been enlightening to me to have been on it a couple of years now and understand. Certainly, I very much appreciate the reports we're getting now. There's a lot, as Chris says, the trust and knowledge of it all is certainly much better. And we certainly got a lot of work to do to try to figure out where we're heading for next year.
And we'll have more information too by the beginning of November.
Hopefully, hopefully. Anybody else? No? Alright. Move on to airport activity and occupancy report, Stephanie?
Yes, sir. Our employments are abysmal, as we all know. They are slowly improving, as is with the rest of the country. We did see an uptick early September that's not reflected on the report, of course, with students coming back to university. So we have had an uptick there. Talking with Allegiant, they're scheduled to come back and start their service October 3rd. And right now, they have very solid bookings for the month of October. I think that remains to be seen, what happens after the 21st of September, when Canada makes a decision. However, this time of year, it is the snowbirds going down south. They're not all coming from Canada. So we might have that uptick going on with that. And to take into consideration also, Allegiant cut back on flights out of Plattsburgh. And this week, it was announced that all Spirit flights have been taken out of Plattsburgh, and they do go to Florida. So we might be getting some of that traffic. It's too early to tell right now. Occupancy report, it remains about the same. GA fuel sales sort of shocked me this month. We are only down 539 gallons year over year between 19 and 20. I would have suspected it be much lower. Our April, May, and June were almost non-existent, but every other month we have really gone above the previous year. Even in May, well, May was a bad month because typically that is St. Lawrence graduation, and we have a lot of flights then. I doubt that we're going to see a better year than last year because particularly with St. Lawrence University's schedule, homecoming, parents' weekend, and the Board of Trustees meetings that are coming up September and October, where we generally get a lot of traffic, is not going to happen. So I don't think we're going to see a lower, equal or over, but this being the 10th of the month, we've, last year in September, we did almost 4,000 gallons. To date, this year, we've done 1,000 gallons to the 10th of the month. So it's creeping up. People are spending more money or flying privately. Businesses do have to get back to work, and they do have to fly sometimes. So that is happening. We're seeing an uptick in the smaller 100 low lead sales right now. People are just trying to get out and about. A gentleman came in yesterday. He flew in just to take a walk. And he left the airport, walked into town for lunch, and walked back out, and walked back to the airport and left. So I see that as a positive. Let's see, do I have those? As far as the traffic goes, we just have to wait and see, but we're seeing an uptick in traffic and passenger traffic, commercial traffic, because of the universities right now. And I think that will continue as long as the universities are in session. We're going to see the students moving back and forth. Any questions?
No questions, Stephanie?
I just have like a really basic question.
Sure.
How do you track people's reason for flying? Like you said, how do you gauge are there questionnaires people fill out? Is it just word of mouth?
No. We can do marketing studies. We're not doing them right now. Nothing official. Me just being nosy more than anything.
Yeah.
And anytime we have general aviation traffic, we always ask Hi, why are you here? How, where are you coming from? Why are you here? How long are you gonna stay? We get our general aviation that way. The commercial traffic, it's pretty obvious when they're all 18 coming in. We know where they're going. And also with the other businesses, the rental cars and so on and so forth, we know where they're going and what they're going to do. The retired folks, you can tell because they're packed to the gills to go down to Florida for the winter. And we know that that's where they're going to go. And they're not worried about going down to Florida because by the time they come back, we all hope that the quarantining is over with. So they're not all that concerned with that. I don't see a lot of deplanements out of Florida coming our way. But our passenger facility charges that we are allowed to assess to each passenger is only on in-plane passengers, only on passengers that get on the flight in Ogdensburg. So those passengers getting off, although there's other effects, the rental cars, the parking and so on, we get funding, we get money for. The guaranteed $4.50 a passenger is only on the passengers that get on the commercial flights.
Is there any way we can take advantage of some advertising into the Plattsburgh market to bring some of that this way or make people aware?
Well, since I just found out about this,
I'm sure our budgets are tight, I just.
budgets are tight, but I think that's something that we need to look into. The other issue thing that's going on right now is Watertown Airport is shut down from the 13th through the 17th. They're doing major construction on the intersection of the two runways. So I anticipate seeing more GA traffic from generally folks who go to the Thousand Islands to come to Ogdensburg. One of their flight schools has contacted me and they will be renting our large hangar for the duration. Those aircraft will be here either tomorrow or Saturday. So we're going to see an uptick in traffic for those few days, for sure. What we might get in, other than that, I don't know. I've not gotten any indication. But once again, general aviation traffic is just like driving down the highway. You don't make a reservation. We're a public airport, people come and go as they please without any warning from, for us. So I do anticipate an uptick, I'm not sure how much though.
Isn't there a website that a lot of Jefferson County people go to? What is the name of that? News Junkie, right? A lot of Jefferson County people. As a public service announcement, maybe we should let the residents of Jefferson County know that our airport is operating and what the schedule is for SkyWest for next week.
Okay,
We need to do that tomorrow.
correct.
And maybe we should also let Channel 7 know and the Watertown Daily Times know that those people who may be in a bind because they can't fly out of Watertown are certainly welcome to come to our airport and use our services. Public service announcement.
Do we still have the Facebook page too? Not that, I don't know if that does any good, but do we have it? That's free.
No, not for the airport.
No.
That's gone.
Yeah,
Yes.
that went with 90,000.
Yeah, we don't monitor it.
Yeah. But you're right. Get the word out that we are still operating next week.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd be more than happy to offer that service to any resident of Jefferson County, so they don't have to go to Syracuse. They can fly out of Ogdensburg.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, I don't know who the contact would be with Fort Drum, maybe the Fort Drum Liaison Committee. Let them know that we would certainly be here for any of the military who were looking forward to being on leave and flying out tomorrow.
We had a Blackhawk in earlier today.
Good. Good, we need to do that quick. If Watertown's gonna be shut down Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Let's do that. Make sense? Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Anything else? About the board activity report, Steve?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just reviewing where we're at. The Roaring Brook project, we have one more vessel of 15 blades coming in either Saturday or Sunday.
Nicole, you did that?
Yes, I got it. I'm on
Bring the
And
kid- bring the
possibly,
kids over?
it. Yeah.
possibly maybe Monday, we haven't nailed down the ETA exactly, but we believe it'll be the head of the Seaway area of Quebec sometime tomorrow. So that's usually 48 hours away, but sometimes they stop in Montreal for a lot longer than is expected, but that's kind of what we see. That'll be our last ship for the Roaring Brook project. What you see there is, that's just one of the cranes that's lifting a nacelle onto a trailer for loadout. And that's our project loadout part of the project. The next one, you'll see a picture of American Rock Salt is sending us, well, will be sending us approximately 45,000 short tons of road salt that we will be unloading by rail. That's our rail car unloading conveyor. And you approximately get 95 to 100 ton per rail car, and we're unloading roughly 8 to 10 a day. They want to get all of that salt in generally by first week of December, so that it's all stockpiled there and we're taken care of. The one advantage when you go by rail, we're able to take more salt. If it's a bad winter, we've got access to more salt, so you have that option there. But this year,